Sometimes the people who once drained your soul come back just to see if you're still thirsty. My friends, let that line sink in for a moment, because today we're talking about something almost every one of us faces at least once in life. Someone you let go, someone you walked away from, someone who knew exactly what they were doing when they lost you, suddenly circling back like nothing happened. And if you're not emotionally grounded, their return won't feel like a test. It'll feel like fate trying to pull you backward. Before we dive deeper, do me one favor, press the like button, hit subscribe, and stay with me. Because what you're about to hear might just save you from repeating a mistake your future self would never forgive. Hey folks, imagine this. Picture yourself walking through a quiet forest at sunset. The light is soft, the path is clear, and for the first time in a long time, you're breathing easily. Then behind you, somewhere in the distance, you hear footsteps. Slow, familiar, soft enough to sound harmless, but loud enough to shake something inside you. That's what it feels like when someone you've let go tries to walk back into your life. They don't come rushing in with fireworks. They creep in like a shadow stretching across the ground, subtle, gentle, almost innocent. But shadows aren't harmless. They're reminders of something standing behind you, something that wants your attention even when you're trying to move forward. And here's the truth, my friends, the truth most people don't want to hear. They don't come back because they've changed. They come back because you have. Your energy doesn't orbit them anymore. Your silence isn't hunger anymore. Your absence isn't a weakness anymore. That shift, that glow-up, that inner alignment is what draws them back, like a moth returning to a flame it once took for granted. People lie to you about this part. They say, if they come back, it's because they missed you. Not always. Sometimes they come back because the easy access they once had is gone. Sometimes they come back because someone else stopped giving them attention. Sometimes they come back because your glow is starting to bother the parts of them that never wanted to evolve. It's funny. The universe has a sense of humor. You spend months healing, you finally rebuild yourself, you find peace, and suddenly, boom, here they come, acting like they accidentally remembered you. But you didn't heal just to become someone's comfort zone again. You didn't grow just to shrink back into the version of yourself that tolerated crumbs. Let me tell you a quick metaphor. Imagine you were once a door with no lock. Anyone could walk in whenever they felt lonely. But healing installs a lock, a key, and a security camera. Now when people knock, you don't panic, you don't jump, you don't run. You calmly check the door and decide whether they deserve to enter, or whether they only want to track mud across your clean floors again. That's emotional control, that's quiet strength, that's Stoicism. And remember this quote, write it down if you need to. Your life stops being chaotic the moment you stop giving emotionally chaotic people permission to return. My friends, you are not the same version of yourself they remember. You are wiser, calmer, sharper, more grounded than you've ever been, and if they're coming back now, it's not a sign to open your heart automatically. It's a sign to stay awake, stay aware, stay anchored. Because the strongest test in life isn't letting someone go. It's knowing whether to let them back in. So here's your affirmation for today. Short, sharp, powerful. I protect peace. Write it in the comments right now. Let me see you claim it. And if this message is already hitting home, press that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay with me. The real truth starts now. Number 1, they come back when your energy changes. People don't return because they remember your worth. They return because they finally feel the absence of what they once took for granted. My friends, let that sink in for a moment. When someone you let go suddenly starts creeping back into your life, It's rare because they woke up one morning full of wisdom and emotional maturity. Most of the time, it's because something in the energy has shifted, and that something is you. You're not standing in the same place where they left you. You're not orbiting around them like you once did. You're not feeding their ego in the way they got used to. And that shift hits them in ways they don't fully understand, but they definitely feel. Imagine you're standing in front of a mirror that's been fogged up for years. You could barely see your reflection because it was covered with the steam of confusion, overthinking, and emotional chaos. You would squint, lean in, try to make out who you really were, but everything was blurry, shaped by how they treated you, how they pulled away, how they made you feel small. Then one day, no big announcement, no dramatic scene. You take your hand and slowly wipe that fog away. Suddenly, there you are, clear, present, stronger than you remember. You didn't necessarily become a new person. You finally saw yourself without all the distortion. And the moment you became visible to yourself, like magic, you became very visible to them too. Here's the strange part. When you were confused, anxious, checking your phone, replaying conversations in your head, they were calm. They acted like everything was in their control. They knew you would answer. They knew you cared more. They knew you would always be there, even if they weren't showing up fully. But when you started to detach, when you stopped chasing, when your silence stopped coming from pain and started coming from peace, something in the background shifted. It's like the emotional Wi-Fi they used to connect to went offline. They didn't notice when the signal was strong. They noticed when it went quiet. That's when they come back. Not when you're crying, not when you're begging, not when you're desperate for closure. They come back when you stop performing for their comfort. They come back when you stop explaining yourself. They come back when you no longer give them the emotional fix they used to take for granted. You might sit there thinking, why now? Why are they texting me after all this time? Why do they suddenly miss me when I finally started to let go? Let's be real, folks. They don't miss every part of you. They miss the version of you that overgave. They miss the version of you who always replied. They miss the emotional safety they felt while you were losing yours. They miss how your attention made them feel important, even when they didn't treat you as important. People love to tell you that if someone returns, it's because love brought them back. But most times, it's not love that knocks first. It's ego. They come back to see if the door is still open. They come back to see if they still matter. They come back to check if your heart is still sitting where they left it. Think of it like this. Imagine they once had a VIP pass to a theme park called Your Life. They could walk in whenever they felt lonely, ride all the emotional roller coasters, enjoy the comfort, and leave whenever they wanted without bothering to say thank you. Then one day, without drama and without warning, that pass expires. You don't renew it. You don't send them a reminder. You just grow, you heal, you change your standards. The system quietly updates. Now, when they try to stroll back in and scan that old pass, it flashes, access denied. And that's the moment their brain starts spiraling. They may not say it out loud, but internally they're thinking, why does this feel different? Why aren't they reacting like before? Why do they sound so calm? Why does this version of them feel harder to reach? Because, my friends, you've learned something they never expected you to learn. You've learned how to live without them. You've learned how to breathe without their validation. You've learned how to regulate your own emotions instead of waiting for their attention to stabilize you. That is terrifying for their ego. Not because they truly want to lose you, but because they never believed you would grow beyond needing them. They thought you'd always pick up. They thought you'd always respond fast. They thought you'd always try to fix things. They thought you'd always be emotionally available at their convenience. Healing ruins that illusion. Silence resets the dynamic. Growth exposes where the power really was the whole time. You stop shaking when their name pops up on your screen. You stop rehearsing what you'll say. You stop analyzing every word they send. You don't jump into emotional chaos anymore. You read the message, you breathe, you respond, or you don't respond. But it's your choice now, not your anxiety's reaction. Your calm becomes the loudest thing in the room. Your stillness becomes the most disruptive force in their world. That's why they come back when your energy changes, because suddenly they are the ones feeling off balance. Their old tricks don't land the same. Their casual hey doesn't pull you back in like before. Their silence doesn't make you chase. And that makes them deeply uncomfortable. The story in their head was always, I can come back whenever I want. They'll still be there. But now they're running into a new chapter they weren't prepared to read. Of course, fear creeps in for you too. You might think, what if I fall for it again? What if I let them in and they hurt me like before? What if I confuse their return with real change? Those questions aren't my weakness. They're signs you're more emotionally aware than before. You're not afraid of them. You're afraid of abandoning yourself again. That's a healthy fear because it protects your future. But here's a truth that needs to land deep. The person you were when they left doesn't exist anymore. You've outgrown that version of yourself. The one who tolerated the bare minimum isn't here. The one who thought being chosen was more important than being respected is gone. You've risen. You're wiser. You're grounded. And their return isn't a threat anymore. It's evidence. Evidence that your energy is different. Evidence that your silence had power. Evidence that your self-respect is finally louder than your attachment. You don't need to fear their comeback. You just need to remember that now you aren't operating from desperation. You're operating from discernment. You're not begging to be chosen. You're choosing who gets access. So as we close this first point, I want you to lock this in and declare it publicly. Your affirmation for this part of the journey is, my energy has changed. Go write it in the comments. Show yourself. Show them. Show the world around you that you are not who you used to be. And stay with me, because what comes next will expose exactly why their return is not a romantic sign from the universe. It's a test of everything you've become. Number 2, the ego never returns empty-handed. When people come back, they rarely bring healing. Most of the time, they bring a test disguised as a second chance. My friends, let's get brutally honest here. When someone you let go suddenly reappears in your life, they're not just bringing a, hey, how have you been, and some casual small talk. They're bringing their ego. They're bringing their unfinished business. They're bringing their need to know whether they still have influence over you. On the surface, it might look soft, innocent, even polite. Underneath, it's layered with motives they may not even fully understand themselves. Think about it. If they truly sat with their mistakes, grew from their patterns, and did the hard internal work, do you think they would just pop up with a lazy, been thinking about you? No. People who genuinely evolve don't test you first. They take responsibility first. But most of the time, that's not what happens. They show up when boredom hits. They show up when their distractions stop working. They show up when the new person isn't giving them that same emotional high. They show up when life humbles them a little and your memory starts to feel like comfort. Not because they're ready to pour into you, but because they remember how easy it was when you poured into them. Imagine their ego as a traveler who once had a permanent room in your house. They could enter whenever they wanted. They dropped their bags, made a mess, slept comfortably, took your warmth, and left you to clean up the emotional clutter. When they walked away, they didn't think twice about the room they left behind. But now, the traveler comes back down the road, tired and cold, and suddenly they're staring at the house they once treated like a hotel. Your lights are still on, your life looks brighter, your energy feels calmer, and that ego starts whispering, "Let's see if my room is still available." They're not asking, "Do I deserve to be here?" They're asking, "Can I still get in?" This is where the test begins. They don't arrive with a confession. They arrive with curiosity. They want answers without asking direct questions. Am I still on your mind? Do you still feel something? Will you still pick up fast? Will you still adjust your schedule for me? Will you still let me bend your boundaries without saying anything? It's not always evil or calculated. Sometimes it's pure emotional immaturity. They've never learned how to deal with hurt, regret, or emptiness in a healthy way, so they do what's familiar. They reach for what used to soothe them. And for a long time, that was you. Here's the lie the world sells you. If they came back, it must mean you're special. But you were special even when they mishandled you. Their return doesn't validate your worth. It simply exposes their unfinished work. The ego hates feeling like it lost something. It can't stand the idea that someone moved on, healed, and rose without giving it a final performance. So it sends a message. It reacts to a story. It drops a memory. It pretends to be just checking in. But behind that little move is a much bigger question. Do I still own space in your mind? And I know, my friends, that when that familiar name appears on your screen, your heart might do a small backflip. Old feelings might wake up. Memories might rush in like a wave. You might start asking yourself, have they changed? Is this my chance? Was I overreacting before? That's the fear talking. That's the part of you that remembers how badly you wanted things to work. That's the part of you that once believed if they came back, everything would finally make sense. But real Stoic strength is seeing beyond the surface. You're not here to demonize them. You're here to understand them. The ego returning is not about deep love. It's about comfort, curiosity, and control. They want to feel like they could come back if they wanted to. They want to know that the door isn't completely shut. They want to test the water before they decide whether to really swim. And in the process, they're testing something far more important, your growth. They might try to act casual, but there's always something underneath. Maybe they're lonely at 1 a.m. and suddenly remember how safe your presence used to feel. Maybe something didn't work out with someone else and your memory becomes a backup plan. Maybe they saw you glowing online and their ego couldn't sit still, knowing you look happier without them. The reasons can vary, but the pattern is the same. They're seeking relief from their discomfort, not necessarily ready to show up differently for you. You have to remember how expensive it was emotionally to keep giving them chances. You paid in sleepless nights, in tears, in second-guessing yourself, in quiet pain nobody else saw. Back then, you thought love meant giving them unlimited access. Now you know love starts with protecting your own heart. So when they come back, you don't have to attack them, you don't have to be cruel, but you also don't have to be naive. You can see exactly what's happening and still stay calm. That's real power. Here's the harsh but freeing truth. Their return is not your big romantic moment. It's your big exam. Everything you've been learning about boundaries, self-respect, emotional control, and detachment, that's what's being tested now. Are you going to fall for the same phrases that once broke you? Or are you going to listen to the quiet wisdom you've gained in their absence? Are you going to hand your peace back to them on a plate? Or are you going to let your peace be the proof that you're no longer available for half-hearted effort? So let this line stick in your mind. The ego doesn't come back to heal you. It comes back to see if it still owns you. You're not property. You're not a hotel. You're not a backup battery they can plug into when their world goes dark. You are a whole, evolving, grounded human being with the right to say, no, this version of me is not accessible to the version of you that left. At the end of this section, I want you to stand in that truth and speak it out loud in the comments. Your affirmation this time is, I am not a backup. Write it. Show yourself. Show them. Show the world around you that you understand the difference between a second chance and a repeated cycle. And stay with me, because what's coming next will open your eyes even more. It's time to talk about how your progress, your glow, your new calm is the first thing they notice when they return. Number 3, your progress shakes their confidence. Nothing unsettles the ego more than watching someone it once controlled move in complete peace without it. My friends, here's where things get really interesting. When they come back, the first thing they feel is not your face, not your voice, not your history. The first thing they feel is your progress. Even if you don't say a word about your healing, even if you don't list all the ways you've grown, your energy walks into the room before you do. And whether they admit it or not, they sense it instantly. Think back to who you were the last time they truly had access to you. Maybe you were constantly on edge, checking your phone, rereading messages, wondering what you did wrong, trying to decode their moods, trying to keep the connection alive. Your nervous system was basically doing jumping jacks while you tried to call it love. You over-explained, over-apologized, over-gave. You shrank just to keep them comfortable. That version of you was raw, open, and exposed. And they remember that. Now, fast forward to the present. You're not perfect, but you're steadier. Your responses are slower, calmer, more measured. You're not begging for clarity anymore. You're not negotiating your self-respect. You're not trying to impress them with your emotional availability. You've built routines. You've found things that make you feel grounded. You've spent nights alone facing your own fears instead of chasing theirs. That work shows up in your energy, in your tone, in your eyes. And when they show up again, they feel that difference, like walking into a room where the furniture has been rearranged. You can't always explain it, but you know something has changed. Imagine your life as a house. Before, your living room was filled with clutter, their opinions, their moods, their reactions, their mixed signals. All of it took up space. There was barely room for you to breathe. Whenever they entered, they walked straight in, kicked off their shoes, and sat wherever they wanted. Now, after your healing, that house looks different. The floor is clear. Your boundaries are like walls that make sense. Your couch is not just a place for them. It's a place for you to rest your own mind. When they walk back in, they feel like a guest instead of an owner. That feeling alone rattles them. They notice it in small ways. The way you don't rush to fill awkward silences, the way you look them in the eye without flinching, the way you listen without automatically trying to fix, justify, or prove. They might even say things like, "You seem different," or "You've changed," or "You feel distant," not realizing that what they're really sensing is your stability. What they used to interpret as too emotional has transformed into emotional intelligence. What they once called needy has become self-aware. What they once took as weakness has matured into self-control. Deep down, their ego is scanning for the old version of you. Will you blush the same way? Will you stumble over your words? Will you drop everything to respond? Will you cancel your plans to make room for them? When they don't immediately see those old patterns, something tightens inside them. Your progress doesn't just impress them, it confronts them. It forces them to compare who you are now with who they still are. That can be uncomfortable, even painful, because your growth silently exposes where they've stayed the same. And this is where you might feel a strange mix of emotions. Part of you might feel proud, because you know how hard you worked to become this calm, this centered. Another part of you might feel nervous, because you're not used to being this strong in front of them. Maybe you're thinking, what if they say all the right things and I slip? What if they pull me emotionally back to that old place? What if I confuse their surprise with genuine change? These questions are natural, and they show how much you care about protecting your progress. Remember, you didn't go through all that pain, all those nights of questioning yourself, just to return to the same emotional prison with nicer pillows. Your growth costs you something. It cost you tears, time, and pieces of your old identity. You let go of fantasies, you let go of denial, you let go of the idea that they were the only one who would ever understand you. That process was not easy, and your progress is proof that you chose yourself when it would have been easier to chase them. They may try to compliment your progress, they may say they're proud of you, they may even act like your growth somehow belongs to them, like they were the reason you became this strong. But you know the truth. You didn't grow because of them. You grew because of what you had to survive after them. There's a difference. One is dependence, the other is transformation. Here's the part they're not ready for. Your progress changes the power dynamic completely. Before, they could rely on your emotions to guide the connection. If they pulled away, you moved closer. If they went cold, you tried harder. If they went silent, you filled the silence. Now, your progress has flipped that script. You don't chase distance anymore. You don't beg for answers. You don't trade your peace to keep their presence. You've learned that you can love someone and still decide they're not healthy for your spirit. That level of clarity is something their ego doesn't quite know how to handle. Let me give you a quote that sums this up. The moment they realize you're no longer emotionally available on the old terms is the moment they finally understand what they lost. Not just a person, not just attention. They lost a safe place their ego once hid in, and that's what your progress really is. It's the closure you give yourself instead of waiting for them to hand it to you. So as you stand in this new chapter, I want you to honor how far you've come. Even if you still feel a little shaky sometimes, you are not where you used to be. Your progress is real. Your stability is real. Your growth is real. And that's exactly what they feel when they're around you now, even if they pretend not to. Your affirmation for this section is simple but powerful. My growth is visible. Go write it in the comments. Show yourself. Show them. Show the world around you that you're not hiding your progress just to make someone else comfortable. And stay with me, because next we're going to dive into how they don't walk straight back in. They start with subtle little openings, tiny tests to see if the old you is still alive. Number 4, they come back through subtle openings first. Most people don't knock on your heart's door with honesty. They jiggle the handle first to see if it's still unlocked. My friends, this is where the game really begins. When someone you let go decides to circle back, they rarely show up with a grand apology and a clear explanation. They don't open with, "I hurt you, I was selfish, I wasn't ready, and I want to do better." No, they start small, soft, harmless. They come back through the tiny cracks, the casual messages, the "it's nothing serious" kind of contacts that secretly carry a lot of weight. It might look like a simple, "Hey, been a while." It might be a reaction to your story. It might be a song sent randomly or a meme that only you two would understand. It might be them liking an old picture they clearly had to scroll to find. On the surface, it feels like nothing, just a little ping. Just a friendly check-in. But you and I both know that when there's history, nothing is ever just casual. That tiny digital knock hits straight where it used to hurt. Imagine your emotional life like a house you've finally cleaned. You've swept out the old pain, rearranged your priorities, opened the windows, and let fresh air in. You're finally resting on your couch, feeling lighter, maybe even enjoying your own company again. Then, out of nowhere, you hear the faintest tap on the window. Not a pounding knock, not someone ringing the doorbell, just a soft tap that almost makes you question if you heard it at all. That's how they come back. Not loud enough to look serious, just loud enough to see if you're still listening. And when that message pops up, your mind starts racing with questions. Do they miss me? Are they finally realizing what they lost? Is this the beginning of something real this time? Am I reading too much into it? See how fast your heart tries to fill in the blanks. That's exactly why they don't come with full clarity at the start. A vague move lets your imagination do the emotional heavy lifting. It lets your hope paint the parts they're not brave enough to say. Let's break one of the biggest lies right here. If their first contact back is vague, it's not because they're being cute or shy. Most of the time, it's because they're testing. They don't want to risk vulnerability. They don't want to risk rejection. They don't want to risk being honest before they know where you stand. So they send something that gives them an excuse. If you respond warmly, they'll say, "I knew we could still talk." If you don't, they'll tell themselves, "It was just a meme anyway." In their mind, they get to protect their pride either way. This is where your new emotional discipline matters. The old version of you might have jumped at that first message, typed a long response, reopened old conversations, read their "hey" as "I've changed." But the version of you that has been healing knows better. You look at that little opening and instead of asking, "What if this is my chance?" you ask, "What exactly are they offering here?" A one-word check-in isn't the same as accountability. A random emoji isn't the same as growth. A song isn't the same as a plan. And a "hey stranger" isn't the same as "I hurt you and I want to fix it." They come subtly because subtlety is safe for their ego. If you respond excitedly, they know your door is still unlocked. If you respond neutrally, they know something has changed. If you don't respond at all, the silence speaks louder than any argument. Your reaction, or lack of it, gives them information. That's why I say these first little messages aren't communication, they're measurement. They're taking your emotional temperature. They're trying to see if your heart is still where they left it. You might even notice they choose strategic moments. Late at night, on your birthday, after you post something that shows you're doing well, after a long silence that they created. These aren't random. These are moments when they assume you'll be emotionally open or curious. Think about it. If they truly just wanted to check in, why didn't they reach out when you were clearly hurting? Why now, when you finally look calm? Because your calm is what's drawing them back. That calm is what they're trying to disrupt or reclaim. I'm not saying every person who returns is manipulative. Some are just scared, some are emotionally immature, some genuinely don't know how to express regret without hiding behind jokes and small talk. But your job is not to decode their fear. Your job is to protect your peace. You can acknowledge the message without surrendering your progress. You can be polite without being available. You can respond without reopening the door emotionally. That's a level of control they never expected you to have. Here's a quote I want you to remember. The first message isn't a promise, it's a preview. You're not obligated to buy the full story just because the trailer looks familiar. Wait, watch, observe, see if their actions line up with words, if the words even show up. See if they move from vague to vulnerable, from light talk to real accountability, from testing you to actually respecting you. If they stay in the land of hints, nostalgia, and ego strokes, then you already have your answer. So, as this section settles in your mind, I want you to step all the way into your power. You don't have to block every person who returns, and you don't have to welcome every person with open arms. You get to stand at the door of your life and decide exactly who gets in and why. That's not cold, that's wisdom. Your affirmation for this section is, I won't fall for breadcrumbs. Go write it in the comments. Show yourself, show them. Show the world around you that you are done mistaking vague contact for real change. And stay with me, because next we're going even deeper into this. What happens when your calm, your silence, your emotional control stops being cute and starts becoming a mirror they can't escape? Number 5, your silence becomes their mirror. Silence doesn't push people away. It pushes their truth to the surface. My friends, this is the part they never see coming. They expect your silence to be the same silence you once used. The silence that meant waiting, hurting, second-guessing. They think your quiet is still the quiet that belonged to the old version of you. But now your silence has a different temperature, a different weight, a different meaning. Your silence is no longer a cry. It's a mirror. And the moment they face that mirror, everything they tried to avoid inside themselves begins to rise. Think about what happens when a person is used to noise, your reassurance, your long explanations, your emotional warmth, your instinct to smooth things over even when they caused the mess. They got used to that emotional noise, they fed off it. It helped them avoid their own reflection. But when that noise disappears, when you stop trying to fill the gaps, stop trying to fix things, stop trying to decode mixed signals, suddenly the silence becomes loud. Not loud for you, loud for them. Imagine being in a quiet room with nothing but a mirror. No distractions, no music, no conversation. Just your own reflection staring back. Most people don't want that room. It forces them to look at everything they've avoided. That's what your silence does to them. It strips away their excuses, their distractions, their ego armor. It makes them face themselves, their patterns, their carelessness, their pride, their fear of vulnerability. And trust me, many people would rather avoid that truth than own it. Your silence highlights their guilt. It highlights their regret. It highlights the unfinished conversations they left hanging. It highlights the disrespect they tried to pass off as just needing space. And when they reach out, and you don't react the way they expect, when you respond calmly, neutrally, or not at all, that neutrality hits them harder than any angry message ever could. Anger tells them they still matter. Silence tells them they don't control the narrative anymore. They'll start checking your online activity. They'll notice that you're not watching their stories anymore. They'll replay your old messages to see if they missed something. They'll wonder who you're talking to now. They'll question why you suddenly feel emotionally inaccessible. They'll ask themselves, why isn't this working like before? Because your silence doesn't feel like passive hurt anymore. It feels like power. It feels like distance. It feels like growth. It feels like peace. And peace is the one thing their ego doesn't know how to handle. Here's a truth nobody talks about. People aren't afraid of losing you. They're afraid of losing the version of you who tolerated things you would never tolerate now. When they feel that version slipping away, their ego panics. That panic doesn't always show up as a mature apology. Sometimes it shows up as irritation, sometimes as confusion, sometimes as sarcasm, sometimes as a sudden concern. But behind every reaction is the same fear. Are they done with me? Your silence is the answer. Not loud, not cruel, not dramatic, just steady, just grounded, just different. This is the point where they start experiencing everything you once felt, overthinking, the what-ifs, the replaying of conversations, the sudden waves of regret that show up in the middle of the night, the desire to reach out again even though they already did, the emotional tug-of-war between wanting to stay distant and wanting to know if you truly let go. They scroll through old photos. They hover over the message box. They type something and delete it. They look at your profile picture longer than they admit. And the entire time, they're battling a truth they don't want to say out loud. My silence didn't hurt them. Their silence is hurting me. That's why your silence becomes their mirror. It reflects the same emotional weight they once placed on your shoulders. It forces them to feel what you once felt. It forces them to confront their role in the story. It forces them to realize that losing access to your peace feels heavier than losing access to your presence ever did. And you, my friends, you're not doing anything extra. You're just being who you've grown into. You're not trying to wound them. You're simply choosing not to entertain the cycles that once drained you. That choice is powerful. It's mature. It's grounded. And they feel that grounded energy so deeply it unsettles them. You might worry, am I being too cold? Am I doing the right thing? Let me reassure you. Silence isn't cruelty when communication was never valued. Silence isn't punishment when your words were ignored. Silence isn't revenge when you're choosing peace. Your silence isn't meant to hurt anyone. It's meant to heal you. And healing naturally creates distance from the things that harmed you. Here's a quote I want you to carry with you. The silence you keep for your peace becomes the storm they never saw coming. So stand firm. Stay calm. Keep choosing yourself even when their sudden attention feels tempting, because you're not the one being tested. You're the one who already passed the test by walking away from chaos. Before we move forward, I want you to lock this affirmation into the comments. My silence is strength. Write it. Show yourself. Show them. Show the world that your quiet is not emptiness. It's evolution. And since this is our final section for now, my friends, do me one thing. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs a reminder of their own strength. Stay with me, because your story is just getting started.